It's another episode of the Christian Reeve podcast. But before we get into it, are you subscribed? If not, please make sure to subscribe, like, and share the video and spread the word. Because the Christian Reeve podcast is here to stay. I love doing this, and I love all of you that support me. So thank you. And yeah, let's get into this podcast, shall we? Boom! Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Christian Reeve podcast. Today's guests, that's right, guests with the plural, is a two-piece comedy band all the way from Pennsylvania. They go by the name The Noodles. Welcome to the show, guys. How's it going?
Oh, it's going pretty good.
Yep, going pretty well. How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. I was worried there that I wasn't going to get a response and we just sit there awkwardly for like a minute going, And then, like, oh, this is awkward. But let's jump straight into it, guys. How did you actually get into comedy? Where did it begin for you guys?
I guess we just wanted to do some sort of project, whether it be film or music or something, and we just stumbled upon the idea of making just songs with just these goofy lyrics that just worked with the styles we played and stuff.
Yeah. So Joe does most of our like musical aspect. He plays most of the instruments on our recordings. I do a lot of vocals and I write a lot of our lyrics. I'm DJ. And so I can speak a little bit more on that. I don't know. I always have loved comedy and it's always been something I've loved doing. And there are just some bands like The Lonely Island, hearing like things like the South Park movie soundtrack just like inspired me to like bring more comedy to the music world.
It's an interesting kind of area, really, because while there are obviously like, big names out there, like the first band I thought of when I was sort of doing research on you guys was Tenacious D. And I think it's a combination of two things, because it's like, it's one thing being a comedy act in a music format, but it's another thing being, musicians as well. It's kind of two kind of spheres, so to speak. But as far as like, I don't know if you could say like the genre comedy music, like I don't see like loads and loads of bands. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of almost still niche, even though there's these big breakthrough acts like The Lonely Island and Tenacious D. It's like it still kind of feels niche, which is kind of interesting to me,
Yeah, it's fun. I've been able to find a couple other really good bands through like trying to research some of that. I was recently into one called King Missile that I liked a lot. And we're like comedy, and we like, if we fit into another genre more closely, it's like rock, and so they're similar to that, which was pretty cool to see.
And like obviously you mentioned before about how the sort of general style is that Joe does like the more musical elements, and I presume then that you do the lyrics. Is that right?
Yep, that's right.
Okay, so like when you guys come together and you kind of approach songwriting, like how does it go? Like do you kind of come with stuff prepared, or do you kind of like jam on the spot? Like what's the songwriting process there?
I guess it usually depends on what song we're doing. Sometimes we'll have an idea in our head and I want to know what it sounds like musically. He'll have an idea of like what we want to do lyrically. So I'll try to put a rhythm down and see if he can find a way to write lyrics on top of that and just go from there and work with what we have.
It's always interesting to me because there's like different kind of like styles you can, well, sorry, not different styles, different orders you can do it. You can do it that way, which is actually how I used to write songs as well. But I've actually flipped and done the other way now. So like I start kind of like jamming and then writing as I go, which is a really ineffective way to do it. But, whatever works, right? I think Daniel was going to say something as well. Did you have something to add there?
Yeah, it's kind of fun because a lot of our songs start with one of us texting the other one, we should write a song about this, and then the other person just like taking it from there. A lot of the time when I write out lyrics to something, when we go to record, I'll just go to Joe and I'll be like, hey, I think it should sound like this genre of music, like maybe like this song a little bit. And then he's able to just kind of pick it up. And we have like a good shorthand between us because like we're cousins. We grew up together. So it's like if we can just say something and the other person can just pick it up and know what we're talking about from there, which is really nice.
It's cool. Yeah, almost like intuitive in a sense. It's good. I think a lot of the time when you're in a band, it's kind of it's all about the chemistry, isn't it? You know, I know obviously this is a two-part element in it. It's about the comedy as much as it is about the music, but like still when you're writing music, you need people that you have chemistry with. So it makes sense, obviously, you guys being family, you've got that sort of connection right there, and that kind of just makes things a little bit easier. Okay, so this next question is very subjective. I don't think there are any right or wrong answers, but in your opinion, what makes good comedy?
Oh, that's a hard one.
Yeah.
I know. It's because I thought about it when I was writing the question. I think it's relative, isn't it? Yeah, your humor might not be my humor and vice versa, but I don't know. I think it's still interesting to know.
Yeah, I think so. I also, on top of like the band stuff, I've started writing and trying to perform stand up.
Okay.
And so I think like if there's a common thread through like the music and the stand up, it's that I think comedy takes a lot of things. It could be an ordinary thing or something that's already odd, and it just takes it to its extreme a lot of the time. I think that's a pretty common thread through it, and I think a lot of it is based in like something real. Like our first EP, some of my favorite lines are like there a lot of our character we do like a story-based EP, and a lot of the characters are super like just out there and weird, but then I'll have lines that it's like something super real, and it's like something that like about like a detail about their life that you wouldn't expect from that kind of goofy character.
Oh, is there something like really like maybe serious from someone who's otherwise just cracking jokes all the time?
Yeah, exactly.
I can see that this is my type of humor already. Well, no, since we're talking about that, like, where do you guys actually draw the line when it comes to that? Like you mentioned before, like obviously you're trying to kind of reach to an extreme, and I think there are many comedians out there, especially like stand-up comedians, such as Frankie Boyle, Ricky Gervais, etc. They always seem to be trying to push the envelope. Like, where's the line? Where's the line? Like, where is too far? And I do wonder about this sometimes. Like, is there too far? You know, there's some people that say like you shouldn't make, for instance, jokes about war or the Holocaust or stuff like that. And then there are other people that say, well, you know, I mean, you should, in theory, be able to make comedy about anything. There should be no limits. And it's kind of almost like similar to the whole free speech debate. But like for you guys personally, like where do you draw the line? Like where's too far? Or is there a too far?
I know as far as like our music personally, I don't really want to get like it's just goofy, stupid humor. I don't want to get like political or real with people. I'd much prefer to stick to something that's just like sort of we're here to have a good time kind of vibe, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
Not
I
anything
get
like
that.
too real or too serious that we're joking about. Just hey, here's something funny.
I think it gives you more universal appeal as well, because like obviously a lot of the time when you are being more offensive or you know just appealing to certain parts of the audience, it just alienates you from other people. So like if you think of something like I don't know, Mr. Bean as an example, like that's just applicable anywhere. Like you don't even have to know English to understand that, because obviously it's more like slapstick and whatnot. But yeah, no, I get that, man. And of course, yeah, from the perspective of just wanting to have fun as well, like obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I want to know, have you guys actually performed this live, obviously pre-COVID or whatever? Like, have you had a chance to do this live?
We want to. It's just
Okay,
hard because we both live 3 hours away.
right. You know, I
Like a
get
lot
that.
of the stuff we do yeah, a lot of the stuff we do music wise is remote,
Hmm, hmm.
where be it sending files to each other with different instruments, stuff like that.
Yeah, the
While
reason.
writing lyrics, like obviously 3 hours away. So
Yeah, no, I get that element. I guess what I'm asking is, as far as like live performance is concerned, obviously Daniel mentioned earlier about, he's sort of experimenting with stand-up comedy and stuff like that. And I wonder, like, when you guys play live, or eventually, like when COVID isn't an issue anymore, is there the plan to kind of just come on, treat it almost like a standard music show and just perform the songs and have fun that way? Or do you want to kind of structure it in a way where it's like the songs are part of it, but it's part of like a comedy show where you have like stand up in between and stuff like that? Because there are many musicians out there that do that. There's an Australian musician by the name of Tim Minch, I believe his name is, who does something like that. Um, Bill Bailey from the UK does the same thing. Is that kind of what you're going for, or are you going to go for something different?
So we've thought about this a little bit. There's like Bo Burnham is another really
Yes.
good.
Yeah.
I like him a lot, but
too.
I kind of so Joe doesn't do stand up, and I
Mhm.
kind of separate it a little bit.
Okay.
What I have thought of that I think would be cool is for me to be like our opener. So like I open with stand up, and then later on we get into the music.
Hmm.
I would hate though for like Joe to just be like standing on stage doing nothing while I'm just like talking.
You could do it Oasis style and just like look cool at the side of the room, just drinking a beer. Like, yeah, you do the work. I don't give a fuck. Here's a funny thing as well about Oasis. Just on a unrelated note, I read this story recently. So you'll notice every now and again when they played live back in the day that obviously Liam would go off stage and like Noel would just play the songs and Liam would be doing something. And apparently in the beginning, the reason that Liam did that is that he needed a break to rest his voice. That's what he told Noel. But then he would go and basically chug a load of beer, smoke, and do everything that you shouldn't do before you go and perform a song. So he just wanted a break. He's just lazy. Yeah, fuck it. Yeah. So, what are your kind of main goals and aspirations within the sphere of comedy?
No, that's another hard one.
We ask the deep questions here on the Christian Reeve podcast.
I think for me, it's just like getting people to laugh is the goal. Like whether that's a few people, like I know like some of our songs have become like memes within just my friend group, and just
Oh
even
wow.
being able to see that has been really fun. And then there's a podcast by an American football player, an NFL player who played our music on his podcast,
Oh
and
wow.
like he gets like 300,000 views an episode. So we've had like a decent runoff from that. And just like seeing that and seeing a bunch of people come from him and comment, just like going along with the joke on our channel has been really cool. So yeah, just like being able to see people like get the joke is a fun thing in and of itself.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
congratulations, first of all, and secondly, yeah, I mean that's all it takes, really, isn't it? Like sometimes I hope of the same thing with regards to what I do, because it's like all it takes is for one person with that big following to showcase you, and boom, you start building something, and that's the kind of the key, isn't it? I mean, you mentioned, yeah, about sort of having like these sort of like meme style jokes that obviously at this point would be like more like inside jokes with your friends. But obviously once you start building that community and they track you from the beginning, you can kind of like follow that progression onwards and then kind of be part of the joke. So you want to be included so that you're in on the jokes and you get them. Like, it's funny, like sometimes I watch some of my favorite YouTubers and they do like, like Reddit videos and stuff. And without any context, if you never watch their content, you'd have no idea why a lot of that stuff is funny. But obviously once you keep up with them, it's like now you get the jokes. So it's almost like more incentive to actually keep up to date with what's going on in that sense. Because like otherwise you won't know what the jokes are.
Yeah. It's kind of fun because like we've had the song that got played on that podcast was like the first single we released, and it's called I Am Caveman, and the entire joke of the song is that it's just a song written in caveman speak, and it's the first song we had ever written, but we like Joe sent me at different points just different like remixes that he made of it, and like stuff that it's usually like for other songs you could see like fans of the band making these remixes of it, but it was just Joe making it, which is kind of fun. And it's like that's just like we were just like having fun with it and like memeing our own song, which was pretty fun.
I gotta say, and don't take this the wrong way, but like when I first heard the first song, because I had no context, I thought you were just like musicians or something. So I heard the first song and I was like, what the fuck is this? And then I started like listening to, because I always give something a chance. That's something I learned from years ago. Just with music in general, always give something a proper chance before you kind of go, okay, I'm done with this. And then I started listening to the rest of the songs and I was like, there's something here. I don't know what it is, but there's something here. And I think it's because the thing is, you can try and be funny in life. You can try and be, a comedian, but like only some people get it. Some people don't have it. Like I've said quite often on my streams and podcasts that like I would never do comedy. The most I would ever do is maybe like a sketch now and again, because I don't consider myself to be a funny person. I think there's a particular mindset that you have to have. And it's not easy. People think like, oh, you're just messing around, fucking around, but like there has to be some structure within it as well. And when I was listening to your music, I did kind of hear that here and there, and particularly the kind of insider joke aspect as well. I could tell, obviously, if you're a continuing member of your work, then there's that kind of likelihood that you're going to find it much funnier, basically.
Yeah, it's so we have an album coming out February 14th.
Good timing.
And we so a lot of the songs on there are just like we have a song about a character named Short Round from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, just because like we think he's a really funny character and we've been making jokes about him for a while. And it's just like it would be fun if like these like inside jokes that we've been joking about for like 5-10 years just like can like other people can joke with us about it.
Yeah, I get that. There's something that I heard years ago, which I think perfectly kind of describes comedy, is that like the funniest person you'll ever meet is like, in a bar or like your uncle or something like that. But like actually when you're trying to do what you guys are doing, which is, extend your humor to an audience, it's much harder to do that, to capture that funniness of, or like probably like, for example, the first time that you guys sat down and like wrote one of these songs, I would wager 9 times out of 10 that you're probably pissing yourselves laughing for like a good half an hour before you go, okay, now let's actually turn this into something. And that's good. That's what you want to share, isn't it, with that audience, basically.
It's funny because I can remember the first time we wrote a song because we were sitting at a table at a Taco Bell and we wrote it on a napkin.
We had this idea, like, I don't know if it was the timing or whatever, but we're sitting there and we're like, all right, we have this idea for a song. We have to write this down now or we're going to forget everything. So we're like, all right, Taco Bell napkin, let's do it.
For some reason, that reminds me of Spinal Tap. You guys have seen that movie, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll explain for the viewers at home. So basically, there's this movie called Spinal Tap. I think it was released in the 80s, and it's a mockumentary about a band, a fictional band, who could play the instruments. I found out later, which was weird. But basically, they're all actors, and the story is it's like a band that's like their career has gone to the shits, and this is like a reunion tour, blah blah blah, and it's just a series of just iconic jokes after iconic jokes. For instance, there's the famous joke of, you know, the interviewer kind of saying like, oh, why don't they just make, you know, the 10 the loudest on the amp, and not just have 10 as the you know, highest volume, and then the guy's just kind of, the guitarist is blankly just staring at it and goes, these goes up to 11, like that. Which, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just that sort of deadpan British humor that I find funny in it, but whatever the case may be. But anyway, the thing that reminded me, based on your story, was there's a bit where they're actually sitting in a bar or some sort of area, and they're basically, they have this song called Stonehenge, and they want to have like a gigantic Stonehenge monument on stage that they can, you know, add as part of the background. And they draw out the dimensions on a napkin, and they give it to, I don't know, whoever, their props guy or whatever. And so then it comes to the day of the show, and instead of delivering an actual, you know, to scale Stonehenge monument, they deliver exactly what was on the napkin, the exact dimensions, which is probably like a meter long, no, if that, like probably like 50 centimeters, I don't know, tiny. And they put it on stage, and then I don't know what you call it, a dwarf, a little person, starts sort of dancing around it, and they're all just looking on stage bewildered, going, what the fuck is going on? And then the best bit, I think, is afterwards, when they're all shouting at each other, going ape shit about the fact that they don't have this proper Stonehenge monument, and they're like, I gave you the exact dimensions on this napkin, and it's like, yeah, but we followed them exactly, the dimensions 5 by 5, like I don't know, meters or whatever. And it's like, no, it's supposed to be like 50. What? Have you seen Stonehenge? It's like this gigantic.
I've never really thought about comparing like us to Spinal Tap before, but it's like, I kind of like that, because it's like so one of the jokes in that movie is that like the drummer keeps dying.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
And we have a joke where it's like neither of us plays drums.
Right.
All of our drums are like electronic through GarageBand.
Yeah.
And so we had a joke for a little bit where we were like doing credits of who played what on each song, and then for the drums we came up with a fake name, and their nickname was The Robot, and their initials were GB, which is the same initials as GarageBand.
Nice, that's good. You could have a running, I mean, this is just a suggestion, you could have a running joke that like you're actually haunted, and that there's a drummer but he's a ghost. You don't know who he is, but he's haunting you. And somehow, every time you finish these songs, miraculously, the drum track just appears out of nowhere.
He just shows up, and all of a sudden, while I'm mixing, there's just a drum track there in the middle.
It's like, how did that get there? What the hell?
Yeah, I've had a lot of different ideas for like, if we do get the chance to do live shows, what I want us to do for drums too. And I've had some fun ideas with that.
I think that's where this will really come into its element, when you get that kind of live show going, because I think that's, so with comedy, a lot of the time, I mean, it depends, and we'll get onto like what you guys do on YouTube in a second, but like I do think that live shows for most performers, especially for comedians, is like the ultimate, isn't it? They often say like in the sphere of comedy in general, stand-up comedy is like the best thing to do. And I think it's because of that audience interaction. Like you don't know what you're going to get. Maybe they just sit and listen to the jokes. Maybe they become part of the show. You just don't know. But
I love improv as well because of that. And I've played around a little bit with that, and I want to get more into it in the future. It's like, and that's even more like, whatever the crowd's giving you, you just run with it.
Yeah.
And so I think improv's really fun in that way as well.
Yeah, I think it's a
And
solid
even as a
move.
musician, like as a musician, just playing live shows is something I always wanted to do. And if fans are into it and they're with the music, I want to try to get them pumped up throughout the entirety of the show and just keep them going.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that, like, I'll give you an example. It's partially related, but with the audience interaction thing, it can often kind of give you content that you wouldn't have otherwise come up with. So, like, I have a friend who does freestyle rapping, right? And it's amazing. He's a rapper from South Africa. Shout out to Buckmeister Carl. I think this is like the 5th time I've shouted you out on the podcast now. But anyway, so he does these Instagram. He calls it freestyle roulette, and he puts a beat on, and he goes, right, send me a word or a topic, and I just like to fuck with him. So I'll just put like really weird scenarios, like, oh, I want you to rap about the guy who farts in the lift, or like, you know, rap about what it's like to, you know, eat cereal when there's like, you know, you've just had toothpaste in your mouth, and just like really weird stuff, and like just see how I can test it. And he always knocks it out of the park. But that kind of element of having that person who throws you that stuff, like that's something that you only get from a sort of a live interaction, you know, be it online or yeah, through a live show. And I think that with you guys, that would be like a really good kind of thing that you can incorporate into your act and have fun with potentially.
Yeah.
But moving it forward, I mentioned YouTube. Yeah, so you also produce other forms of content such as vlogs, podcasts, and comedy sketches. Which types of content do you like to sort of produce the most out of all of those?
We've had a lot of fun with the sketches more recently. We both are, I mean, obviously like the pantheon of sketch comedies like SNL, and we both love that and had been talking about that. I took acting classes for about 8 years in my youth. And so I kind of had that background with it. And so for a while, I had been like, oh, we should make stuff other than just music. And then eventually Joe came along with that idea. And so I think that's what I've had the most fun with outside of our music.
Yeah, me too. Because I'm a huge fan of sketch comedy. I love watching SNL, and I've always been interested in it. I wanted to try to get into it, and being that we're a comedy band and we wanted to do other forms of entertainment, I think Noise Noodles was a great way to start trying to write sketches and get into that.
So yeah, you're looking to build like more of a brand then. So it's not just going to be a music act. It's going to be like, you know, that like music will be a big part of it, obviously, but it's not going to be, you know, the be sort of the end of your kind of offering, so to speak.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like to
exactly.
think. Yeah, I like to think first and foremost we're a band, but the other stuff kind of brings it together in a way. Gives us other outlets to put our comedy into.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how you guys develop that. I mean, that was one of the first things that I noticed when I was looking at the YouTube. I was like, there's legs with this, I think, and especially within comedy, there's like so many different things that you can do. And if you are funny, I mean, there you go. That's all you really need. You know, that and like a degree of creativity, I suppose, as far as like coming up with different types of ideas and such.
Yeah, and one of my favorite things, like whenever I find a new comedian that I'm really into, I'll look up like all of their like late night TV appearances, all of their interviews and stuff. And so I think it's cool for us to be able to like we don't have to like do any of that kind of stuff for any of like potential fans to see who we are. Like people can just right away go to our channel, and right there they have like they can look at our vlogs and see us in our natural lives. Like they can see sketches and see other ideas, see more of like us like acting. So I like that's something I had as a goal for us, was to like just be really open as creators right off the bat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What kind of new types of content, or just, I don't know, what does your 2021 look like? What's the plan?
Um,
So you mentioned the album that's coming out in February, but what else?
yeah, so after the album, we already have a couple more sketches that we've written, and we just need to find time to record. Um, I think we've decided, like, the album took a lot of time, and us being, like we said, 3 hours apart from each other, like, was very taxing to be able to record. So we're looking at a lot more shorter projects, probably a few singles and some covers. Um, and we recorded one episode of a podcast, and we're hoping to do a little bit more of that. We're both in university right now. So that's a bit difficult with, like, trying to find time. But that's a lot of what we're looking to do this year.
What are you guys studying?
We're both psych majors, right?
Yep, we're both studying psychology.
Oh, wow. Okay. Cool. And how far are you guys into that? Like first year, second year?
I'm graduating in May.
Wowza.
Wow.
It's going to be a good feeling.
I graduate in the fall, and then I plan on trying to go get my master's and move on to my PsyD after that.
Wow. Imagine that being
So-
like a psychologist and a comedian. You've got to fuck with people's heads that way.
That's
Oh, that's a good idea.
there's a comedian I really like named Ben Schwartz, who like has acted in a lot of stuff and has done a lot of improv, who he also graduated with a psychology degree, and so I saw that, and I was pretty hype about that.
If someone hasn't already taken the mantle of like Dr. Comedy, I'll be very amazed, because that's just sitting there, right there, just waiting to be grabbed. Like, come on. You mentioned a podcast there. Is that something just between you guys? Because that as well is another thing that I think would be interesting to hear, is just you guys fucking around having a laugh. Like, I think surely that's something that you should be doing.
Yeah,
Our podcast is right now, it's just us two just kind of talking about whatever we can think of.
Okay.
Personally, I'd like to get guests on at some point, because I think having more people could lead to funnier and better conversations.
Do you think it will be just having like just little chats in general, or maybe just sharing stories? Like I had a podcaster on here recently who was also a comedian as well. It's funny how these things work out. And she had this idea of basically people talking about like their wild nights out, which I think, that's right there. You've got, it could potentially be really bad, really good, really funny. You never know. Like, do you have something in mind like that? Or is it just kind of more like, let's just have a laugh, let's just have a chat, see what happens?
Yeah, I think we're very just like conversational.
Right.
And I know definitely for me, I have a personality where most of the time I can just sit down in a Zoom call and I just vibe with the people that are in it. And like, I like just being able to talk to people and like really like see, like really just feel who they are through conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I have to say, actually, throughout the course of this podcast, I do, especially because it didn't always used to be a video podcast. It used to be audio only, which I thought was more preferable. But now I've realized, like, actually, no, it's much better when you can see the people, because you can see how they're reacting. You can also see if they're comfortable as well. That's something that isn't always the case. It's like something that I really try hard to do is to make my guests feel as comfortable as possible, because it is an uncomfortable situation. You're sitting there, you don't know what the person's going to ask, you don't know what to expect. And like sometimes people have like an agenda, or they have like, it has to be like this. You don't know if you can talk a lot or a little. Like, you don't know. You just don't know. And like, I've been a guest on other people's shows as well. And I think, well, obviously I feel more comfortable when it's my podcast, but when I'm on other people's shows, it's a bit like, yeah, that first 5 minutes is like very telling. Like, we'll see how this goes, you know. And I've never had like a bad experience per se, but there have been times when I've been on people's shows where, you know, maybe I would have liked to have talked more about certain thing, or I've had times where people interrupt me a lot, which I can't stand that shit. I don't know about you guys, but you know, if one person's talking, you shut the fuck up and let them speak, and you listen, and then you have your turn, like tennis. You know, it's
Yeah. I've had some ones because I have been, both of us have been trying to guest on like as many podcasts as we can, because we're like, obviously we're a small band, we don't have a publicist and we don't have like a press tour to announce our album. But I do a lot of like our business, and we don't make money, we run a loss every year, but I run like our business and like have been appearing on a bunch of podcasts, and it's like interesting to see just everyone's different style of like interviewing, and like I have the most fun on them when it's just like a conversation and it's not like they're willing to just kind of roll with whatever we're serving up, and they're not like tied to their questions. Like the questions are an avenue to get us to talk about stuff and have a conversation with them.
Yeah, and I think that's a very important element. You do have to kind of, I don't know, be kind of like water. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, that sounds like a weird analogy, but like go with like what your guest is giving you. You know, like it's very frustrating when like you're a particular person, you're a particular way, and this other person is trying to get you to like, no, you go in my box and you do what I want you to do, and it's like, well, fine. I mean, I'm a guest on your show, and you know, like especially knowing that you're an entertainer as well. It's like, well, I can be more entertaining if you just let me be entertaining, as opposed to just like putting these fucking limits on me. I'm not ranting at all, guys. Anyway, let's talk about something a little bit serious. I just want to know like what the response has been to sort of COVID-19 in Pennsylvania, where you guys are from. Like, just, you know, how's it been for you? What's it been like over there? Because I do find it interesting, country by country. You know, I've had guests from around the world on this podcast, but something is interesting about the States is that every single state is almost like a mini country in of itself. So some places are more laid back, some places are more restricted. What's it been like in Pennsylvania?
I think PA's been a little bit more strict than certain states. I don't think we're the most strict state about things, but we've had a couple like we had the initial like everything was shut down for a while, and then like about a month ago we had all like restaurants and everything shut down again. So we've had a lot of like, it's been very like changing. It feels like every week there's like a new rule that we have to pay attention to, and it's getting to the point where I'm starting to lose track of all of it. But
it's frustrating. We've had
my biggest thing. My biggest thing is because I transferred over to a new school in the fall, and they switched to all online courses and stuff, and it's been extremely hard trying to start at a new school when you can't talk to any professors or anything in person. Oh, wow, and like I haven't even visited the campus yet.
For real?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's nuts.
Oh, I suppose so. Your entire first year, you haven't. Wow, fuck, that's mad to think about.
Yeah.
Gee. Yeah, and so that sucked, having like my senior year be like all online so far, or for the most part, and it's like I just can't hang out with all my friends all the time. A lot of them aren't even here at campus. The only reason I'm here is because I have an apartment with some of my friends, and like, yeah, so that's been pretty sucky.
Yeah, it's the worst time to be a student right now. I mean, like when I think back to my degree, I feel so lucky that it happened when it happened because right now it's a frustrating thing as well because it's like there's nothing anyone can do about it. It's like it would be irresponsible to have everyone together in one place. We all know this. We hear it all the fucking time. But at the same time, it's like it's not really uni if you can't be with people and do you know what I mean? Like, especially I really feel for like first year students right now because it's like you come into the university and the whole thing is, your first year is one party year. That's the whole point because the next 2 years of your life are going to be working your ass off. And to not have that is like, I mean, it's almost like, well, give me my money back then. It's not really part of the deal. But then you can't really be angry at anyone, can you? Because it's like, I mean, it's like, okay, if this was like an insurance situation, this counts under like an act of God or some shit. Do you know what I mean? It's like you can't really pay out on that basis. Like in the UK, we've got a lot of people arguing, the government and stuff like that about, well, people should get their money back, or they should get subsidies and stuff. And I don't really know where I sit on that because I think that's fair for certain degrees, but maybe not so much for others because a lot of stuff would be based online anyway. But like at the same time, it really depends on your degree. And some things, you can't be being able to like physically be with a professor and pick their brains or being in a seminar room and being able to talk to people that way. And even just like human interaction in general, like learning from other people and, I could go on about this, but you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It's just
And
hard to be motivated for school when you can't be in a school setting and talk to professors and be with other students and just do it from your house. I don't know. I don't like it.
Yeah. And like with like we had a couple music festivals that we were planning to try and play at and then got canceled over the summer because it's like we were both going to be in the same place for the summer. And so we were actually going to be able to go do live stuff, and then that couldn't happen because of COVID. And then like I've had like 2 or 3 stand-up performances I was going to do that got pushed back as well. And it's just like it's hard because I want to sit at home and just keep writing stuff, but it's hard to be motivated to write stuff when it's just completely uncertain when I'm going to get to perform and actually like test that material to an audience.
Do you have these because I heard around certain places around the States you've got like these socially distanced events, so like there was wrestling events where like maybe there's only 10% capacity, same for sporting events. I'm not sure if you've done it for sporting events actually. Here in the UK, I don't know if it's still the case now because we're in another lockdown, number 3, but for a while the Premier League here we had like 10% capacity. So say if it's like a 40,000 seat arena, maybe you have 4,000 fans and it's doable, like you can do it sensibly. Do you have things like that? Because I've seen in America and also certain parts of the UK throughout the past year, there's been like things like drive-in style things. If you want to see a movie, you can do it that way, or even just socially distanced comedy. I think didn't Dave Chappelle do a show that was outdoors where it was like socially distant?
Yeah. Chappelle did a few shows in like parking lots in Ohio, which is like where he lives. Which is like the like it's a weird Ohio's like a really like spread population and like is like really interesting. But that's where he grew up, I think. So that's like where he lives now. But yeah, and we've had that with sports too. Like they didn't have that back when the baseball season was happening, but now with the NFL, it was going state by state. So like certain teams were allowed to have fans and certain ones weren't. And it's the same thing with basketball with the NBA. They have, I think there's like 3 or 4 teams allowing fans for that.
Mad. Makes you think like when we're going to actually return to some resemblance of normality, really.
Yeah. I mean, I was just reading today that for the NFL with the Super Bowl, they're allowing like 7,500 like frontline medical workers who have gotten the vaccine to go to the stadium. So it's like interesting because like we're starting to see the rollout of the vaccine here with first responding medical workers, and like my dad's a an addictions counselor, so he like was classified with that, and he's gotten the vaccine now as well.
I don't know if you're able to talk about this, but has your dad sort of had more cases, more people, because obviously with a lockdown, with restrictions, it kind of increases the likelihood people do drugs, people. I know, for instance, here on a slightly related note, we've had a massive increase in domestic violence. I think it's like 70%, 80%, something scary like that. Do you know if that's increased during that time, or?
Yeah, definitely. So America has seen the same thing with domestic violence going up, unfortunately. And then, yeah, definitely with addiction as well. Those numbers have also gone up, and like I think we've also had like attempted like suicide and like other stuff like that has gone up as well, and like depression. I know that like I ended up going to counseling over the pandemic for a couple reasons, but like definitely being isolated was part of that. And it's just not been good for anybody's mental health, I don't imagine.
Yeah, it's been very difficult for me actually. I've been, because I chose, well, it's my choice, but I chose to move to a different city in February of last year. So I don't know anyone here, haven't been able to make friends or anything. And I live in a house where there's people coming and going all the time. So I do see people from time to time, but ultimately, like for instance, the other day someone moved out, so there's like 2 more people left in the house. But it's mostly like there's been times when there's been no one and stuff. And I think there's a certain degree of benefits of being, for instance, single and alone and all that. But at the same time, even for me, I never thought it would catch up with me, but it has in some respects, and it's interesting to say the least. I know for a fact that if I didn't have this YouTube stuff to do, I would probably have lost my mind by this point, which is quite scary to think about. It is what it is. Anyway, moving on. Let's maybe talk about something a bit more funnier. Have there been any like crazy stories? Because we hear about this in the UK, and we've had some in the UK as well. I know at the beginning of the first lockdown, there were people stockpiling on toilet tissue and hand sanitizers. Obviously, there's been people stockpiling stuff with the intention of selling it. What's some crazy shit that you guys have seen?
All right, so I worked retail for 2 years. Like I just recently quit.
Hey!
And yeah, and
I worked in retail, so I know that's a good feeling when you do that.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. I got a job where I don't have to deal with the general public, and it is the best. It's so great.
Success.
But anyway, like it got to the point at my store where we were getting trucks like in the thousands just filled with toilet paper and stuff.
Dang.
Like, and I worked at a small little drugstore, so our stock room was just completely filled with toilet paper and all this stuff because we put it out one day and the next day it's just all gone, and it was like that for weeks, and it was nuts. Like we had to limit people, and in our system we couldn't scan more than 1 or 2 rolls of toilet paper because they would just buy the entire store if they could.
Did people react like really aggressively? Did you have like any kind of situations on your hands, or were people all right?
For the most part, people were cool. I mean, you get those people every once in a while where they're like, "Oh, that doesn't make sense. Why is that a rule?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry. Like, I don't make the rules. It's a corporate thing. I'm sorry."
People lose their marbles with that. Like I made a video on this recently on my second channel about how to get what you want from customer services. And I can tell you, it sure as shit isn't by being rude and attacking the guy behind the counter or the guy on the phone. It's like, you just got to be calm, and say stuff like, "Hey, I know it's not your problem. Hey, I know that there's something that can be done." You can even do the whole manager thing without being a dick. It's possible.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I've gotten snappy with my parents about that since I've also worked retail jobs and
Mm.
like other like service like food service jobs
Oh yeah,
too.
it's rough.
And so like my parents will get kind of snippy with people at points. And I'll be like, "Hey, this isn't their problem."
Yeah, a lot of the
Yeah.
time you'll be working for a place and it will have like some dumb fuck rule that you know is dumb fuck. That's the thing. Like people assume like, oh, they're working in retail, they're working in hospitality, they must be idiots, they must not understand. No, on the contrary, the people that tend to run the business, they actually ironically tend to be the idiots. But the people actually working on the front lines are usually very intelligent people, you know, people studying, people, you know, whatever. Like it's a frustrating job to be in. Like I remember when I was working in a hotel. Oh man, like here's a really good example, right? So we had this 4-star hotel that I worked at, and you walk in, and it's got a lounge area, right? And to the far left, you've got an a la carte restaurant. To the far right, you've got a buffet restaurant, and then further on, there's like a banqueting area, blah blah blah, right? Now, our main bar, when I first joined, was a standard bar. You know, it has pints, cider, bottled beers, 15 million types of gin, because apparently that's a thing. I don't know how people can stomach that. That tastes like shit. But anyway, I hate gin. And cocktails, right? Cocktails. It's a big thing. You know, you come to a 4-star hotel, you want a cocktail, you know, it's a enjoyable thing to have. Then at some point they decide, and we also, important point to the story, we had another bar in the a la carte restaurant. However, that restaurant is not always open for certain points of the day. That'll be important later. So this main bar for about 8 months is just a normal bar. And then we decide to rebrand. It's a gin cocktail bar. And I was like, to my manager, I was like, say that again. Gin cocktail. And I was like, is that a thing? Do people have gin cocktails? And he's like, yeah, we've got this whole list put out. It's going to be great. Oh, by the way, don't serve people regular cocktails. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, if they say they want this cocktail, say no. And I'm like, you're creating problems for me right now. You're telling me I have to say no to people. And for a good 4 months, 5 months, I had to just tell not only new customers who would get annoyed, but regular clientele. People that you know, there's always people that come in that you have the same argument with, and they know what they're doing, and it doesn't matter how many times you tell them, you know, they're just trying to find that new person that doesn't know, and then they can get what they want. That's what they're trying to do. So anyway, after like 4 or 5 months of this shit, it got to the point where we had to start accepting cocktail orders again, but from the other bar. So not the main bar, the other bar, which meant that you'd have to have a member of staff go down to that other bar, open up the bar, then make the cocktail, then bring it back. And then you would get a bunch of complaints from people about, well, this is taking too long. Why can't I get it from the main, place? Oh, it's taking like half an hour. And bear in mind, we're always understaffed. It goes on and on and on. And I thought, why not just fucking serve cocktails from the main bar? And then it got to a point where I was like, do you know what? Screw this management. I'm just gonna just do it anyway. I have the stuff here. I can make it, so I'm gonna make it. Screw you. And that's kind of like how I would often kind of approach it. But point being that there will always be these like dumb fuck rules that aren't the fault of the people working there. Sometimes it's because of, you know, business surplus requirements that have made it that way. Sometimes it's like a health and safety issue, and sometimes it's like a policy issue. And I think that's the major thing, when it's not like a law or not something that's like etched in stone. When you say policy, that's basically your way of saying, we could change this, but we've decided to be difficult on purpose. Like just to fuck with you.
Yeah.
That's about right.
I always love to rant about stuff like that. I don't know. It's like that's in my rearview mirror. You know, I stopped working in hospitality about it's like 4 years ago now. Wow. But it wasn't bad for the most part. It was fairly enjoyable. Like working at a bar, if you haven't done that, that's a lot of fun. But actually just working customer service is brutal because of, the way people speak to you for the most part. Like I generally wouldn't have issues with my managers. It would always be those customers. And you try to be as accommodating as you can, but sometimes people are just unreasonable. You know what I mean? That whole thing of the customer is always right is bullshit. I don't know who came up with that, but it's just no. No.
Yeah, I worked in the kitchen at a bar for a little while, and we would have like things happen between like the kitchen staff and the waiting staff, where it's like
Yeah.
there would be miscommunications there, and then everybody would be blaming everyone else, and
It's normally, I mean, this is my experience. It's normally that like someone in the waiting staff doesn't know what the fuck they're doing, and then, so like for example, something gets sent out from the kitchen, and it's like it needs to be like this, and you need to explain X, Y, and Z to the customer, and then it gets sent back to the kitchen. When it gets sent back to the kitchen, ooh, that's the worst, because I don't know what it is about chefs, right? But like maybe it's the stress they're under. It's a very stressful job. But when something gets sent back to the kitchen, you just see someone's face turn from like 0 to 90 in the like they just go, they switch, they get really aggressive. And if you're there, you're the one that's getting shouted at. Was it your fault? It doesn't matter if it's your fault. Fucking sort it out. It's your fault. It's never their fault. It's always the customer being unreasonable. And this is not me shitting on chefs or anything. I think for the most part, I would lean on the side of the chef being right, because the amount of stuff I've heard come through, like I remember there was this one place I worked at where they would send through, like this person kept sending back like a steak, and they wanted it like they said they wanted it piping hot. I want this piping hot. It's not hot enough. It's so cold, and it's like you couldn't make it any hotter unless you like burnt it in like the fires of hell. You know, maybe then it would be good enough. But it just, you know what I mean? And like, yeah, I had the same problem with like afternoon teas. You get people just like, it's not hot enough, it's lukewarm, and it's like, motherfucker, I just boiled it. Like, how much hotter can you get? Like, I don't understand. Like, what is wrong with your body that you can't acknowledge that this is steaming hot? Like, literally, I showed it to my manager, and it's like, look, there's steam coming out of this pot. What is wrong with you? Oh man, I forgot about all this.
we would have like some of the waiters, we would have a lot of turnover with the waiting staff, and so we would have waiters or waitresses who were putting in orders for like items we didn't have, or like customers would ask them if we could like prepare things in ways that we like the equipment to make it that way. And so like the kitchen manager would have to call them up and be like, we can't do this, you need to go tell the customer that, and then see what they want us to do. And then it would take like significantly longer for us to make what we needed to make.
The thing is, customers will complain about the stupidest thing. Like, I was working one day, and this lady comes in. She's like, "Oh, I just bought $200 worth of stuff, and I didn't get my 50-cent coupon." And the way our system means we have to return all that stuff and re-ring it back up just so she can get her 50 cents back. It's like, how are you that petty with money that you're gonna make us waste half hour of our time to do that?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I never forget this. I remember hearing about a story of like, because I worked in this supermarket one time. It was like a well-to-do supermarket, you know, upmarket. So like everyone that came in is you know they live in like a £5 million house or whatever. And we had David Tennant come in, who was very famously Doctor Who at one point. And oh, it's not even funny, really. But basically, he came in and he shouted at this like 16-year-old cashier for like 20 minutes about, a coupon, or no, it wasn't even a coupon. It was like, oh, he was buying some cheese or ham, and it was like £2 more expensive. And, you know, so he just grilled this poor young 16-year-old. And it's like, dude, you're fucking rich. Like, what the fuck do you care? It's wrong. It's like £2 more. Get your fucking priorities straight, motherfucker. I don't know. I mean, sometimes people say like, oh, people are just stressed and they just want stuff the way they are. But I put it down to pettiness a lot of the time. Yeah, it is people being petty. And this is the thing. When you're working in customer service, you've just got to take shit from people. You just have to smile, nod, grit your teeth and be like, Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I want to kill myself, but it's
Yep.
great. Yeah, we're a part of a team, even though we're not. And like, I mean, I think you just gotta kind of be resilient. I think that's the best thing you can do. But I will say one thing in defense of most teams I work with is that normally the managers will have your back, and there is always a line between, okay, we need to do what we can for the customer versus, no, that customer's being unreasonable, we'll tell them where to go. Like there is always a line, and hopefully you have a manager that's like that makes a judgment call, because some managers don't. Some managers will do anything for the customer, and then that's why you have those like instances where people are being so unreasonable, and it's because you never said no. It's like when you're a kid, like you can't give your kid everything they want. Sometimes you have to say no, and then you have to explain like why they're not getting what they want. You can't just give someone what they want 24/7.
Yeah. I've come to realize like how relatable like doing customer service things is, and like we've thrown around the idea that like at some point we want to write like a full like EP or album about customer service, because we have some sketch ideas for that too, because we've both probably worked different customer service jobs for like 5 or 6 years each, and so we both have enough like little anecdotes that we could probably write a full album about it.
I think people would really enjoy listening to that. It's good. Like, for instance, I appeared on a podcast recently. I mean, I didn't really appear on it. I sort of I pre-recorded something for it. It was shout out to the Hotel Hell podcast. It's literally just a podcast where you just talk about your bad times working for hotels. And I was able to give a story about a place that I worked at very briefly. And it's surprising that you don't hear more people talk about this, because there's always people talking about, customer service I received that was just terrible, or a place that I worked that was terrible. But there doesn't seem to be like people talking about it on an ongoing basis, or like, as you say, like via a project. I think that would be really cool to hear. I think a lot of people would benefit from that and be able to relate to it. That's the thing. Most of us have worked in customer services. Like, I think for many of us, it's like a starting block, isn't it? It's the easiest job you can do, where, you don't even necessarily have to have the full skill set. I will say this though. There's a lot of people that work in customer services that can't do the job. And because people think, it's easy, you just serve people all day and no problem. But no, you've got to have many different skills. You've got to be a salesman. You've got to be able to handle pressure. You got to be able to work very, very fast. So you need to kind of be reasonably fit to do the job. And yeah, you kind of got to like be able to just do everything at once, even though you don't have enough time. Like, I think that was the first time that I learned that a lot of the time when you work in a job, you don't have enough time to do all the work. So you have to find a way to kind of like, I look at it like balancing plates, like on a, what was that thing? Spinning plates, when you got the sticks and shit and you're like, that's basically what working in customer service is like. And yeah, I don't think everyone can do it. I've worked with people that would crack under pressure, or just wouldn't be able to hack it, and it kind of reinforced that belief in my mind that like it's not for everyone, even though it's the easiest, one of the easiest forms of work. Not everyone can do it, which is interesting.
It's like the place I worked at I wasn't just a cashier. Like, they had a photo department. I was on the floor like stocking shelves. I was unloading trucks every Thursday and Friday. So it's like every day is like working a new job.
The funny thing about that, I remember when I first started working at the supermarket place, because you inevitably end up getting cross-trained everywhere, and for ages they tried to stop me from getting cross-trained on the checkouts. And the reason for that was that whenever the store was busy, which was often, they would just call you on the checkouts, and this other section had the ability to do that. So it didn't matter that you were doing your work, you would just get pulled away. So this delivery that you're supposed to do within the course of, say, an hour and a half would then get pushed back, and then you would be delayed by many hours because you have to go on that checkout. And who's to say how long you're going to be on there? Maybe 20 minutes, maybe an hour. I remember I was on there for like an hour and a half one time. I was just like, this is awkward. Why didn't you get that done? Well, I was on checkouts for an hour and a half. Ah, god damn it. It's true. And like it's almost like the more you can do, the more hassle it is for you as well. Because it's like you end up just going everywhere. And in a way, it's kind of cool, I suppose, because you get to work in different places. But at the same time, it's like you don't know where you're going to end up. You don't know, like, it's much easier when you're in one place, because then you kind of know everything that's going on in that particular area. Whereas if you're in everywhere, you don't have like a full kind of understanding, or you don't know.
It gets
everything.
overwhelming.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know what I'm driving at here.
Yeah, I get you.
Anyway, let's move it forward. What are you guys actually doing for a living right now? Are you kind of doing stuff online, or what's the deal?
Yeah, you go first.
Okay. Mine's a little more complicated. I'm just like in school right now.
Yeah.
And then so like last semester of school, I was working at the bar. But I have a heavier semester this semester, so I'm gonna quit. But I've been doing like delivery driving. And I've just been doing a lot of just like odd jobs. I collect like baseball cards and stuff, and so I have like a lot of like built up like stock of stuff that I've been selling to make a little bit of money, and then like doing the delivery stuff. But I guess technically I'm unemployed right now.
Yeah, me too. That's fine. There's nothing shameful about that, so don't worry. It's the same struggle. I've been unemployed since February last year, which blows my mind because I have a degree. I have 3 years experience in my field. I mean, I am freelancing in marketing, but yeah, it's not often enough, and it doesn't pay enough. So here I am doing this.
Yeah, I had never quit a job before. And then in the past year, I've quit 3 jobs. I worked in a dining hall at my university, and then I quit. And over the summer, I worked at a Goodwill, which is a thrift store. And then I quit there at the end of the summer because I didn't have enough time to work during the semester. And then I worked at the bar, and now I quit there.
It's kind of fun, isn't it, in a way, quitting a job. Go on, Joe, please.
I worked retail for a good 2-3 years, and then I don't know. So I was supposed to get promoted to a manager, and they were like, "Oh yeah, it can go through." And then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh yeah, by the way, you're not becoming a manager anymore."
Yeah.
So I was like, "Well, screw this then. I'm not gonna work here if you guys are gonna keep working me to death and not give me any sort of promotion or anything." So I quit that job and worked with my friend I'm working in agriculture right now. I work on a bug farm. Yeah, I work on a cricket farm.
Okay, you've got to talk to me about this. You work at a cricket farm.
I work on a cricket farm, which they breed and produce crickets to sell to pet stores and stuff.
Okay.
For like different reptiles and stuff. So I don't work in the production part, which is what my friend does. I work in shipping, which is folding and making the boxes to put the bugs in. Then I actually like put the crickets themselves in boxes and ship them out to different stores.
Okay. And how are you finding that so far?
It's not bad. I mean, it's definitely an odd job, and everyone I tell about is like, "Dude, that's actually a thing." And
yeah,
I'm like, I had to go to my boss and be like, "I promise you, I'm not making this up. I have to quit because I work at a cricket farm." And it's definitely an odd job, but it's not bad. It's kind of tedious, but it's not a bad job at all. I just plug in my headphones or talk to my coworkers, and that's it.
That's pretty chill, actually. That's ideal, really, isn't it? And
this is the first time I ever heard you describe it as working in agriculture, and I think that's hilarious.
I mean, that's technically what it is, though.
It's one of those things, isn't it? It's like when people go like, "Oh, no, he's not a cleaner, he's a hygiene technician." And it's like, technically, it's
I
right.
mean, it's a farm, I guess.
It's like
kind of.
So you could say you're a farmer.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm a bug farmer.
Bug
Yeah.
I
farmer.
for a living.
it's like at Subway when they call their people sandwich artists.
No, fuck you, Subway. No, what do you mean sandwich artist? All you do is slap the product. I've seen it. They don't even fucking do anything. They just slap the products in there. That's been. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how long that stuff has been there for, but yeah, they. So no hate towards the staff. I just no, not a sandwich artist. That implies that there's actually some talent involved in making the sandwiches, and there's not. I've seen it. Anyone can do that. You know what I mean? At least if you're a fucking barista, there's like you do have to learn like how to make the coffee. Same with making drinks, and there's a good way to do it, and then there's the wrong way to do it. You know what I mean? Whereas with a sandwich, how do you making up a sandwich? Like, come on.
Well, so part of my job at the dining hall, there was like a section of it that I had to know how to do both. I had to know how to like make coffee as like kind of a barista, and then there was another section where I had to make sandwiches. There's a surprising amount of ways that you can mess up people's sandwiches and they'll complain to you about it.
Shoot through some examples to me. Come on.
There's definitely like you can forget to toast it if they tell you to. It's a lot of just like you forget to do stuff. Like you'll forget to put one thing on, and then if a person is like neurotic enough, they'll come complain to you about it. The one time I was like, this was like 3 years ago, but I was like the slightest bit under the weather. It wasn't even like I was like fine, but I like went off to the side and I like coughed in my elbow.
Yeah, that's just what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, and it's not like I like changed my gloves and then like somebody complained to my manager about that.
Oh man.
And like
people go nuts.
all of my like we had like student managers and then the like head manager. And so like they complained to the head manager about it. And like all of the student managers that were there went over to the main manager and were like, yeah, he did nothing wrong. Like this person is complaining about nothing.
It's kind of scary to think as well, like how things have changed where like before, if you coughed, it's like, oh, whereas now if you cough, it's like,
yeah,
he's got the virus.
He just committed a crime.
He's gonna kill us all. Ah!
That's why it's like I wanted to clarify. It was like 2 or 3 years ago because it's like that would be like if I like if I went to work a little bit under the weather now, like that is not an acceptable anymore.
Yeah, no, it's the new normal, isn't it? Things have changed. I mean, do you know one thing? I made a video recently. God, I feel like I'm fucking plugging myself 24/7 in this podcast. About like the benefits of the pandemic, which sounds like what the fuck? How can there be benefits? But I do actually think there will be a few things pertaining to hygiene that will actually improve for the better. And one of them is like how, especially in customer service jobs, you can't be ill. Like, God forbid you're ill and you have a day off because they'll just fire your ass. And I think now, if you say you're ill, it's like, no, you stay home. Like, you take care of yourself, be safe, be well. And that's a good thing. I think if we can somehow keep that element of like, them actually taking sickness seriously, because don't get me wrong, people do exploit the system, but you can tell there's a difference between when someone has the flu versus, someone was drinking last night and now they're too drunk and they can't be bothered to come to work. There is a clear difference and you can always tell the difference. Like I remember getting really pissed off working my fucking ass off. And I was in a similar position to you, Joe, where, I was in the runnings to get a promotion for this job. And, I mean, I didn't want to work in a supermarket. I hated it. But like, I wanted to at least get that promotion before I left and kind of just have something to string in my bows before I kind of moved on with my life. And it was promised to me. And, I'd worked hard enough. I had the right attitude for like at least like a year and a half. I was in the runnings for it. And then it just never came. And the longer I was there, the more I realized how things really work. And then, you know, my attitude just went, because why should you give a fuck about a place that doesn't give a fuck about you? And when it came to those days where, you know, you were sick, and I genuinely was sick, my rule was always, if I feel like death and I can't move out of my bed, I'm taking the day off. And I had to commute quite far. I had to commute about an hour and a half to get there back and forth. So I really meant it when I was sick. And I can't count how many times they just gave me hell for that. And I just, oh man, when I think about the day that I quit, it was not only was it satisfying as far as just never having to go back to that place, but it was 3 years of that shit. 3 years of never being trusted, 3 years of working my ass off for nothing, 3 years of people talking to you like you're a little bit of shit on the floor. Like, people don't realize this, but working in customer services, when it comes to these things, it like takes its toll on you, like mentally, physically, everything. And so like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
would come home from work mentally and physically drained, and it's awful. And you
you can't
shouldn't be
do
like that
anything.
after going to work. Exactly.
It's like when I was in that first job, I was younger, like I'm 27 now, but back then I was between the ages of 18 to 21, and I was in this metal band at the time. And so like I work like 40 hours a week, often something like 6:30 till 3:30, 7 till 4, you know, sometimes later. And then I would go and play a fucking heavy metal show somewhere in London, and, you know, lug around heavy equipment and all this. And I'm thinking, how did I have the energy? Like, how? I could never do that now. I'm exhausted after a day's. I mean, look, I do volunteering right now once a week on a Monday. And it can be anything from like delivering heavy furniture to like serving in their shop and giving food to the homeless and stuff. But like, I come home after like, what was it, like 9 till 4, exhausted. Sometimes the day's shorter. If it's in the shop, it's like 9 till 2, and I'm like like a zombie afterwards. I'm like, how the fuck did I do that? I guess it's just getting
That's like,
older.
because I'm in another band too. So sometimes like I would go to work and immediately after go to practices and stuff and play live shows with that band. And it's like, that's exhausting. And now I'm at the point after doing that for a while, and we still do it, but now it's at the point where I'll get home from work and like 10 o'clock will hit and I'm like, I'm done for the day. Like, I'm out. Whereas I used to be up till like 2 or 3 in the morning. It's like, how did I do that for so long?
Yeah, no, I'm totally the same, man. Like I used to, especially in my teen years, I used to like, you know, do gaming up until like 3, 4 a.m. and then go to bed, wake up like 2 p.m. and then the next day or whatever. And like these days, I feel like an old man. I go to bed at like 11, sometimes earlier than that, wake up at like 8 a.m. without an alarm. Like my body just wakes me up at that time. Like, nah, get up, motherfucker. No, I want to have a lay-in. I'm unemployed. I may never be unemployed again in my life. I want to enjoy being able to wake up whenever the fuck I want. No. You're going to get the fuck up. This is like, ah.
Yeah, I know. I did like high school sports. I played football, like American football. I wrestled and I threw shot put and discus. But like I would like get like 5 hours of sleep and then go to school from like 7 a.m. until 2:30. And then I would go to practice afterwards. And I don't know how I did any of that because I couldn't do like one of those things now.
I know how basic and obvious this will sound, but I think it's just a case of like, when you have to do shit, you just make it work somehow. And then you think about it afterwards and you're like, what? I could never do. But let's be real. Even right now, I could do it. Somehow I'd find a way. It would probably be with a hell of a lot more caffeine. Because I think when you're younger, you just have more energy. But when you get older, you need to like constantly inject like caffeine into your veins and shit. Coffee. I said caffeine.
That's yeah.
Coffee and stuff.
That's what I was drinking coffee for like the first half of this podcast.
I need so much in the mornings, honestly. I just drink it all day. It barely even has an effect on me now. Most of the time I have to have like espresso coffee or something to stay awake. Like really strong stuff. And yeah, anyway, moving it on. What are the best and worst things about living in Pennsylvania? Forget about the COVID-19. It doesn't exist. Sell me Pennsylvania, the good and the bad.
I'm gonna start negative. It gets pretty cold here in the winters, and it snows a lot. I know that's something that Joe hates too.
I live on a hill, so I live on a hill and I have a front wheel drive car. So when it snows, it is hell, absolute hell.
Oh, okay. I know what the worst thing is though. The weather's pretty bad, but the roads are awful here.
Okay.
Pothole city.
Yeah, potholes. People drive really stupid. I have a stand-up bit about how bad PA drivers are.
The other day I was driving. This has happened to me for the past like month. I've been driving. It's pitch black at night, and just nobody has their lights on. All of a sudden, people just don't want to put their lights on. It's like, how can you drive your car not seeing anything and expect other people to be able to see you?
When I lived in Europe, funnily enough, I experienced the same thing. And I lived in this country called Estonia, which is quite close to Russia and Finland and Latvia. And there were often times when I would commute in from the city to the countryside and vice versa. And in the winter, it gets really dark really quickly. So I'll be on a bus and it's just pitch black. There's no fucking lights anywhere. And it's like once in a blue moon, you'll see like a street light or something. But I noticed quite quickly that, cars just wouldn't have their lights on. Or they do the worst thing where they don't have their lights on until the last minute. And then they put not only their standard lights on, but the blinder lights where it like lights up like a fucking Christmas tree. So it's like, so like if you're driving in a car or a bus or whatever, and you get that at the last minute, it can blind you and then you could fucking crash or something. But they just seem to all be like really chill about it. Like, la, 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 whatever. I do this every day, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, they just don't care. Like,
just why not just have your lights on, make everyone's lives easier, including your own? Like, I don't understand that.
Yeah, I have a bit in where I'm talking about like the roads themselves too. And like the drivers are very bad, and I hate a lot of people who drive in Pennsylvania. But there's a bit where I say like PA roads are worse than New Jersey, and New Jersey is considered the armpit of America. So if you're worse than New Jersey at anything other than being bad at things, you need to reevaluate how you're running your state.
Yeah.
Let's keep talking about Pennsylvania, but I want to circle back to that. Let's talk about the good things.
Talk about New Jersey.
Yeah.
The good things about Pennsylvania.
It's funny because both of us want to move out of Pennsylvania soon.
But it's great, but we don't want to be here.
Yeah,
I know around this area at least, some of the more foresty kind of like nature side of Pennsylvania, there's a lot of really nice hiking trails and just views and stuff around here. It's always nice to just relax and go to these places, especially with friends, and just experience nature itself.
Yeah.
So I think that is a nice place, right? Nice thing.
I definitely agree with that. And something along with that is that like it's very like diverse in like the landscape. I mean like the landscape and like demographically, like it's like a lot of people move from like New York to Pennsylvania, or like a lot of people did when New York was like the hub for immigration. So like that's one nice thing I like about it, is there are just a lot of different kinds of people. And you get to interact with people from all kinds of backgrounds. But then on top of that, like the area that I grew up in and that Joe lives in currently, there's like it's like a gathering of a lot of different cities that like is classified together at times. And like I grew up in a more like kind of industrialized, like the biggest city out of that grouping. And so like it's more like there's like an arts district and some other stuff there. And then there's like one or two other cities like that, but then there's a one nearby that's like mostly farmland. And then there are a couple cities nearby that are like mixes. And so there's just like a lot of different stuff to be able to do.
I was
The city I'm from too has just a lot of like mix of like high income, low income, middle income, and so like there's just a lot of different like areas.
Yeah, I was gonna say it is nice being able to go from like I'm in a sort of a city right now, and then you drive 20 minutes, a half hour, and there's just like nature and like kind of countryside, like any direction you go.
Thanks for sharing, guys. I often ask my guests about this when they're from somewhere that's, well, just in general. I don't know. I like to ask this question. That's definitely the most detailed answer I've ever received. Normally, people will go like, "Yeah, there's this and that, and it's great in the fall," and and then that'll be like the end of it. But yeah, that was actually a very comprehensive, detailed answer. So thank you for that. Now, what's your beef with New Jersey? What's the problem there?
I feel like it's like
New Jersey.
New Jersey is one of those states. It's like New Jersey and Florida are probably the most like notorious states, and they have like the most widespread like reputation out of any of the states. Because Florida is known for just being like insane and just like whatever happens there. And New Jersey is notorious for just being the worst at everything.
Like,
what do you mean, like at sports, at the economy stuff? Like, is that kind of what you mean? Like, just not performing well, or
it's just kind of a rundown state in a way.
Okay, all right.
Where like you go into New Jersey, like I have to go there later today. And you go into Jersey and you just get this like immediate sense of, oh God, I'm in New Jersey. And like everywhere you look, it's just kind of gray and bland and boring, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for some parts, there are a couple nice beaches. There are also a couple pretty crappy beaches compared to some other states. So like there are some nice parts. I think it probably gets a worse rep than it's due, but I also think it's really funny to make fun of it.
Do you know
I also
why?
grew up in Jersey, so
okay.
Yes.
So there's a bit of a personal vested interest
there's a
there.
bit of Jersey. Great.
Okay, so as I understand, go on.
Joe was born there, and both of our parents grew up there.
Yeah.
Like both of our dads grew up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And everyone was just quick to get out, basically, is the scenario. Like, as soon as you can leave. Like, here's the thing. For me, obviously, I don't know much about it. The things that I know about New Jersey is this. I know that it's next to New York. I know that, for instance, WWE always chooses to do, like WrestleMania, when they want to do like a big one, like WrestleMania 35, something like that. They choose to do it in New Jersey and say that it's New York because it's cheaper to do that than actually hold the event in New York. So that says more on them than it does in New Jersey. But whenever they say that, people are quick to remind them that New Jersey is not New York. I also remember watching this program, How I Met Your Mother, that was supposed to be set in New York, and there were constant jokes, particularly from the character Ted, about how shit apparently New Jersey was. And I felt like it's the sort of thing that I guess you could only really know unless you live in New York or New Jersey and could have like that kind of that point of reference. But yeah, I don't know. Just can you comment on that? Like, what's the deal? Why does apparently New York hate New Jersey, and why is there a rivalry there? And what's the deal there? Please explain this to me.
I love you bring up How I Met Your Mother because I love that show, and I've watched it like 3 times in the past 2 years. But yeah, I mean, like that show is set in New York City, and so especially like New York City, probably looks at New Jersey as like New York light. Like and the
Okay.
the same thing as what you were saying with like the WWE stuff. Like the NFL has the New York Jets and the New York Giants, both of which their stadium is in New Jersey. Um,
Right.
they both started like when they both were created, they were in New York City, and then they moved to New Jersey because, like you said, it's cheaper. Um, but kept the New York branding because that.
That would be like if Manchester United was based in Liverpool. Like, because technically Manchester is, I think, it's about an hour from Liverpool. It's not far by car, but like that's the same thing because as I understand, New York is right next to New Jersey. There's a bit of distance travel, but you can get there within a reasonable time. But it's a different place. So how can you say, oh, well, we're the New York Jets, but we're in New Jersey? What? What?
Yeah. I mean, like
Very
they got their grounding in New York actually, but
Yeah,
it
so
is kind of
technically
just
it's
a weird.
within New York, isn't it? As far as like the state is concerned, is that right?
No, so
Is that wrong? Okay.
yeah, so New Jersey is like right next to New York, the state, and it's probably like what, like 40 minutes hour car ride from New York City.
Well, yeah, because this is
Uh,
what I get confused by. So New York, it refers to the city and the state. But as you're saying,
yes.
New Jersey is not within the state of New York. Is that correct?
No, New Jersey is its own state.
Ah, okay. Now I understand. No. See, that makes a bit more sense, but also makes it a bit confusing. I guess it's just because they're so close together. But at the same time, if it's a
Yeah.
different state, it's a different state. You can't really. That's why I get confused about the whole WWE thing because it's like they
Mhm.
say, "Oh, we're in New York," and it's like, but you're not. You're
Yeah.
lying.
And it's in the same way too, a lot of people will like live in New Jersey but
Yeah.
work in New York and like take the train to New York every
Yeah, yeah,
day.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, see, that makes sense though if it's not that far away. I mean, people do the same thing in London. There's people that travel from the Midlands, so places like Nottingham down into London, which is like 2 hours maybe or more. But it's cheaper to do that and pay for the rail fare and do it that way than it is to actually live in London.
Mhm.
Madness. Yeah, well, thanks for sharing. I think we've all learned a little bit more about that. um, as we draw things to a close today, is there any kind of like final thoughts you'd like to share with us, or maybe some upcoming projects, some things you missed, or whatever? Now's your chance to plug. Go, 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 go.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna run through everything we have to plug. You can follow us on Instagram at the Noise Noodles, Twitter at Noise Noodles, Noise Noodles on Facebook, Noise Noodles on YouTube. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, any streaming platform you can imagine. Deezer, Tidal, just like everything.
Title still exists.
Um, yeah, Tidal does still exist.
Wow.
We're on TikTok even. People make TikToks with our music sometimes, which is interesting.
Have you guys had a lot of
Um,
success there actually on TikTok?
Surprisingly, we've had a couple covers that the original song isn't on TikTok, so people use our cover of it.
Which really
Ah.
surprises me because we never even really advertised that we're on TikTok.
No, we never have.
So you should push that. That's a good platform. Like I think for young people like yourselves, it's a good platform to be on. I think the reach is insane. There's people that get like upwards of like 4 million followers, and like they basically don't do anything. Do you know what I mean? So for comedians,
Yeah.
it's perfect.
Yeah, we've had some people like make some pretty big creators, or not pretty big. We've had some people with like a few 100,000 followers on TikTok make stuff with our music,
That's
which is
excellent.
cool. But yeah, big projects we have coming up. Like we said, we have an album entitled Shoulder Bones and Kidney Stones, releasing on February 14th. It's our first album. It's 10 tracks. It is intentional that we're releasing on Valentine's Day because we think that's funny.
Your gift to the world.
So if you're lonely on Valentine's Day, follow us on your favorite streaming platform and have some fun listening to our album.
I'll listen and cry because I'm lonely. So that works as well.
Yeah, I wanted to have a reason to pop some champagne on Valentine's Day, and I don't have a significant other, so there's my reason.
Good on you. No, fair play, fair play. There should be a singles day. I hate to sound like bitter, but there should be a fucking singles day. Like maybe directly afterwards, or even the same day, just to fuck with them. Like, I don't know. This is because the thing is, like, the thing that's always pissed me off about Valentine's Day is that it's just like this silly holiday where it's made by card companies, as we all know, and you should love your significant other regardless. Do you know what I mean? It shouldn't be the sort of thing that you have to prove it one day. And this is the thing. I've been in relationships, right, where it becomes like a fucking contest where like it's like, what? Well, you did this. Well, I did this. I bought a bouquet and a string quartet and flowers, and we're going on holiday to fucking Hawaii. And it's like, go fuck yourself. That doesn't say shit. You'll probably be broken up like tomorrow. Like, come on.
Yeah.
It's a lie. It's a farce. Fuck you, Valentine's. And it's not because I'm single. I feel the same when I'm in a relationship. If anything, I get more pissed off because I do low key. I won't be a cheap ass. I'll take them out, but I'm not going to like roll out the red carpet because as far as I'm concerned, you should do that all the time. It should be spontaneous.
Yeah.
Like it's more romantic to do it like spontaneous. Like, you know, you say to a girl or your significant other, like, oh, what's this in it? And, you know, what's the occasion? And you go, because I love you. You know, it just writes itself. Whereas Valentine's Day, it's like, if
You're
anything,
almost required to do something.
yeah, it's like, okay, I've ticked the box. Yeah, okay, we've done something.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, bringing it back to you. Yeah, so your record releases on February 14th. Best of luck with that. And yeah, just in general, guys, thank you very much for being on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you and hearing about all your different projects. I wish you all the best of luck in the world with this. And yeah, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man,
thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us on. It was a really good time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
The pleasure is mine.
Yeah,
and yeah, for everyone listening to the Christian Reeve podcast, as I always say, if you're listening on YouTube, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and spread the word about the podcast. If there's any particular topics or guests you'd like to see on the podcast next, let me know. Send me a message. Let me know who you want to see on the show. Let me know what you want to hear on the show. And yeah, for those listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to the Christian Reeve podcast, that's the one. Then yeah, make sure you're following, leaving a rating, whatever the case may be. And yeah, just make sure you're being safe, being well. Thank you for listening. And until next time, peace out, one love. I'll see you in the next one.